Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 online commentary. This time around it is a bit of a treat, definitely a bit of something different, some online 3v3s in custom games. So a fun pair of matches we had yesterday. Started out just as some 2v2s with Atticus, who's a friend of mine, another YouTuber. And we actually had Gojira hop in and seeing if we can make it 3v3 and get BlackIron Battles and DahvPlays in. So of course we accepted, and it had a few games here, which hopefully you guys will enjoy as well. In the odd chance that you guys do follow me and you don't follow any of the others here, I will be sure to leave all the links to their channels down below. Dav, Gojira, Atticus, and BlackIron all do have their channels, so definitely be sure to check them out, and I will be leaving all those links down in the description below. And without further ado, guys, let's hop right in. So for the teams, it was Gojira Gaming, Spagooter, and DahvPlays for the opposition. For over here, this mishmash force facing off against the Greenskins was myself, Atticus, as well as BlackIron Battles. And quick rundown, you can see this is definitely a bit of a mix, some Bretonnian, Dwarf, and Dark Elf play. So it's definitely some desperate circumstances to force these guys to fight shoulder to shoulder here. But when you're dealing with the Greenskin Triple Wah, what won't you do? So a quick rundown of the compositions and the deployment. It's definitely going to be a little mishmashed. As you can see, we did deploy with some defensive geometry here, trying to stagger out our force, of course, to soak up the charges, to soak up the Wah effects, because of course 3 Wahs staggered out over time can do a lot of hurt. So like I said, quick rundown. For Bretonnia, one of the cool things that you can do when you do 2v2s or 3v3s is you can have people focus on specific sort of build or specific units, rather than trying to make a more balanced build and relying on their allies to really fill in those gaps. So in this situation, as Bretonnia, you can see I'm not contributing much in the way of infantry, some cannon fodder here, men-at-arms with shields, providing a little bit of a zoning tool for enemy shooting, just to soak up charges and all that sort of stuff. Some peasants on the flanks, of course. Once again, these guys are just here to provide additional cannon fodder on the flanks, soak up shooting, soak up charges, all that sort of stuff. Single unit of Beast Slayer's Baston, providing some extra anti-large, and 2 peasant bows with fire arrows anchoring things in the center. Of course, the main force for myself is, of course, I'm mostly playing support here, essentially, with cavalry and the Fey Enchantress. You can see she's here with her usual kit, Regrowth, Earthblood, Chalice, and all that good stuff. Single unit of Grail Guardians over there, Grail Knights and Companions of Canals on the other flank, and then 2 Grail Knights on the other end. So definitely a very heavy cav force for myself, simply here to support the main contingent from the Dwarves and Dark Elves. The Dwarves here definitely providing this front line of Longbeards as well as the Grumbling Guard. You can see Giant Slayers providing further support in reserve here. These guys, of course, have monstrous AP values, great anti-large power. They're definitely very, very solid. There is a Lord here who does have some pretty fancy equipment. He's got the Star Metal Plate, lowering enemy melee attack, Iron Warden's Hammer, which gives perfect vigor, as well as stand your ground. These guys are being supplemented here by some Blackguard and Aggron. These guys, of course, great against the Ragnarok Spiders, great at just holding their own and defending the line to the bitter end. They're just a very, very solid unit at just holding out. Witch Elves providing, of course, shutdown for enemy cav, providing additional support against light infantry, and all that good stuff. 2 Thunders from the Dwarves here, providing some heavy AP firepower, of course, something that Peasants cannot provide. A cannon here, reinforced by a Master Engineer, who does have a whole bunch of his skills. Prospector Spyglass, Ballistics Calibration, as well as extra powder. And out on the periphery, we do have a small Dark Elf contingent of Knights of the Ebon Claw, as well as the Slaanesh Harvesters. I do believe I forgot to mention the Dark Elf commander here that Atticus chose was Marathi. You can see her here flying on Sulafet, heading out to harass those poor Greenskins. She, of course, does have Melkoth's Miasma, Power of Darkness, Soul Stealer, Soul Blight, both of her items, including the Wand of Kraydon and the Enchanting Beauty. So a lot of debuffs, a lot of stopping power there. For our opponents, definitely a bit of a mixed bag. They did go with the full themed greenskin build, so all 3 major factions represented here. You can see Crooked Moon largely deployed over here in Vanguard, as the sneaky goblins are wont to do, a normal greenskin mob over there, and then Savage Orcs on the flank here. Going over the composition real quickly, the Vanguard force here, a mishmash of Forest Goblin Spider Riders and normal Forest Goblin Spider Riders, or Forest Goblin Spider Rider Archers and Forest Goblin Spider Riders. That is a bit of a tongue twister. They are backed by a Goblin Great Shaman who does have Spite of the Bad Moon, an absolutely hilarious spell, or Curse of the Bad Moon, which is absolutely hilarious and definitely should be funny here if we see it casted. Itchy Nuisance, which is a great debuff, and Sneaky Stabbing. And of course, this guy does have an additional wall of his own, and he can Vanguard, which is very useful when you're trying to Vanguard a whole bunch of troops in the front. He is backed by 2 Goblin Big Bosses here. And of course, there are a whole bunch of Arachnocs on the field, 3 of them in total, including the Arachnoc Queen. So a lot of AP, a lot of just poison stopping power, a lot of armor to grind through. So definitely some tough nuts to crack. For the Greenskin mob, nothing too fancy. We do have 2 units of Orc Board by Big Guns, providing some AP anti-large. Grimgore, as well as an Orc Shaman, anchoring things here in the center. Front line of Orc Boys, backed by some Orc Board by Big Guns and some Black Orcs in the back. And the front line is composed entirely of Orc Air Boys. So these guys, of course, are very, very solid at just doing some okay AP damage, peppering away, and they're okay in melee as well. So I think they're a pretty decent unit, and definitely here theming that Greenskin build. On the far flank, we do have the Savage Orc mob. You can see they are getting hit there by Wand of Caradon. The Wand of Caradon, not necessarily the best against infantry, but we'll definitely see how it does here. There aren't exactly other great options. The rest of the Savage Orc mob, some Savage Orc Big Guns, Savage Orc Air Boys. Of course, the Pig Lord himself, good old Wartsag, riding along there with his Foot of Gork. Here we go, Fists of Gork and Brainburster, as well as Bonewood Staff, which is basically a global, that's basically a global mini-Wah. So it's really, really strong and definitely can be very helpful. He does have Wartsag's Revenge, which of course is a map-wide miscast chance. So a lot of sort of map-wide effects, and these are so much stronger when you're doing 2v2s or 3v3s, just because you're affecting so many more units. Finally, there are Savage Orc Board by Big Guns here on the flank who are trying to swing around and make themselves a bit of a nuisance. And that's definitely one of the things that makes all the map-wide effects, especially the map-wide Wah, is one of those things that make Greenskins such a potent force in 2v2s, 3v3s, and those sorts of battles, because they can benefit so much from that. And if you stagger out your Wahs, which is definitely something we're worried about here, you can be in for some hurt. As you can see, there is some early game posturing and skirmishing going on. The cannon here teeing off on the Ragnarok Queen, knocking her down by a few HP. Shot here missing, I think, on the Ragnarok Spider. And you can see we're definitely do pull the cavalry over from the far flank. So getting my Grail Knights set up, figuring that was really their job. The job of the Grail Knights here is mostly to just deal with this cavalry contingent, prevent any flanking, and prevent breaks by heavy troops that could kind of force path their way past, say, Giant Slayers or Longbeards and units like that. In the meantime, though, the Greenskins are trying to set up a nice little concave to assault us. You can see I'm pushing out my men-at-arms. I'm pushing out my peasants there to provide a sort of zoning area to deny these troops their push. You can see Wartsag there already took a bit of damage, I think, from the cannons who are currently being obstructed. In the meantime, Grail Guardians as well as the Fanchantress here pushing forward, repositioning, and you can see on the other flank we are trying to reposition a little bit to engage. Perhaps BlackIron getting a little ahead of himself here, perhaps expecting us to support him a little more efficiently. And the Thunders here are about to take a nasty charge from the Spiders, which is definitely a little bit of a problem. We're definitely a little slow on the upkeep. You can see the cavalry here charging in, and we do manage to interdict. And you can see the Thunders barely take any damage, and immediately the Force Goblins just having a miserable time getting hit by Melkos Miasma from Marathi and getting torn to shreds. In the meantime, Arrowfire whittling down these Force Gobbos and forcing them back. And you can see I decided not to commit here with this cavalry. I don't want them taking too much hurt prematurely. I don't have the Fanchantress here present here to provide heals, so I really don't want these guys getting overextended, because I really want to keep the Grail Guardians here to help with the Savage Orcs, which of course could potentially be a big threat. Over here, the Peasant Mob doing their best to take on the Spider. You can see they even land a hit there. Look at these guys, they're so strong. But with the Wah coming in, of course, the Peasant Mob, as good as they are, is just not able to stand up to that. On the other flanks, in the meantime, you can see I'm pushing out the Peasant Mobs to force these troops back, try to help out here. The Knights of the Evanclaw definitely getting a little overextended and getting mauled pretty badly. The Slaughterous Harvester drop a Soul Stealer and pull away, as well as a Soul Blight. Over here, the Men-at-Arms with shields, just once again soaking up these big gun charges, buying time for the rest of these rest of the dwarves who are now going to push in and provide some additional support. Unfortunately for me, though, a Effigy of the Git does go down, as does a Foot of Gork, and of course that is going to be just brutal. But you know, these guys kind of got out of it, and the Fanchantress is in there, and she's of course going to be able to provide some heals. And you can see here these guys getting bogged down. We are dropping a lovely little regrowth here on the Grail Guardians, which will top them off. On the flank here, things are definitely kicking off. You can see this beautiful greenskin head, what is it called? the Curse of the Bad Moon roving around off target as always. In the meantime, though, this cavalry fight has degenerated into a massacre. The goblin units just not able to hold up against Grail Knights. Grail Knights are just really good at slaughtering cheap light cav. And honestly, even the Orc Boar Boy Big Guns, who did have their charges disrupted, are going to get massacred. And there's just a lot, really some solid sort of support play. You can see the Black Guard here, despite being pretty limited, is essentially just 2 units of Black Guard and these Witch Elves locking down this huge mob here of Greenskin troops, just keeping them tied down, while the Thunderers do get these flank shots, getting nice little shots here over the top of their Slayers, who are helping back up these Grail Knights into a sort of victorious fight here. Of course, our opponents are able to swing around here on the flanks, get some supporting damage, and you can see the Wa going down there, Itchy Nuisance going down to try to help these guys out, but it's just not going to be enough against all this knightly power. Of course, these Peasant Bows definitely having a terrible time, but what can you do? They tried. So, definitely the sacrifice of the infantry over there, buying us some major time. Here in the pits, as we do overrun this cavalry, it's going to be a big sort of advantage made. You can see another Foot of Gork here, nuking down these troops, annihilating the Slaanes's Harvesters. Basically just leaving this one unit of Blackguard to hold the line against this tide of Greenskins, but this is a big problem. You'd never want your troops stacking up like this, and this is actually going to be very beneficial. Blackguard's just not going to break very quickly. Once WoW expires, they're going to be pretty good, and they'll definitely hold out pretty well. In the meantime, you can see over here, we do actually pull our Grail Knights into these Death Creepers, trying to save our archers, forcing these ugly goblins off. Definitely a lot of stuff sort of breaking down all over the place. Giant Slayers hitting these Savage Orcs in the flank. Here in the pits, these Blackguard doing their best to hold despite having been cycle charged. And you can see the Fan Changers coming in with the Grail Guardians with the reinforcements as an Earthblood does go down in this blob. And this is definitely one of those useful things with the Earthbloods. You can just be healing everyone. Units that don't normally get heals can be healed. And you can see the Brain Burster there, not really doing much damage to these heavily armored troops. And unfortunately over here, the Spider does just kind of waddle through. You can see another Wa going off. And the Spider there just pushing through. However, this Arachnarch over here, which has been getting nailed by the cannons, it's also going to get chipped away at by the Grail Knights, by these Questing Knights. I did actually pull the Companions in here to deal with the Arachnarch. These guys are actually, they're not anti-large, but they will do pretty well against heavily armored monsters like this, just because they do have so much AP in strength. I do believe it's like 48 baseline, and of course with poison it's a little lower, but still, they try. Over here in the meantime, nice little wrap by the Grail Knights, who are very healthy, just able to hit unit after unit, ping-pong, knock these Orc Boar Boy Big Guns off the map, push onward, and really exploit their advantage here to force several units out of position, get them off the map completely. These Thunders in the meantime, alongside the Slayer buddies, dealing with the Arachnarch Spider and tying it down. Finally, this flank has broken, so finally a win for the Greenskins here, but this Blackguard is holding to the bitter end, 8 models here, so definitely pretty disastrous losses for them, but you know, they held their ground. Over here, the Arachnarch being forced off by the Companions, and of course, the Greenskins no longer have the tools to save it. They've got nothing to catch it. In the meantime, over here, things definitely holding kind of stable. You can see Get Back here, forcing the Greenskins to hold their ground, but with the Fan Chantress in here, melting away at these Savage Big Guns, the Grail Guardians in there providing their buffs, the Blackguard, all those units, we will be able to mop up these Savage Orcs, and with that, launch rear charges into the back of those troops over there, which is going to be very sort of force a total rout. Over here, another Spider of the Bad Moon going down. You can see the Beast Slayers of Bastone pulled to provide reinforcements here. Spider of the Bad Moon, a hilarious spell, but really just so weak. And you can see Marathi here on the hunt, and she's really been trying her best this whole game to hunt down these enemy troops. It's not really something you'd expect from her, but honestly, against she's not a bad Lord Hunter against weaker casters, and she's definitely being a bit of a monster there. Of her own kind there. Fan Chantress doing great. In the meantime, these Savage Orc Big Guns are falling apart as we do try to save some of the Thunders here from the Spider Hatchlings, those harassment units. Over here, Grail Knights do actually manage to secure the cannon with the help of the Lord and the Engineer. They even bring the Spider down. You can see it just wrapped up there, looking all sad. Unfortunately, the Peasant Bows here, despite their best efforts, are just not able to hold their ground. It is what it is, though. Over here in the back line, the Blackguard, as well as these Slayers, just holding their own against the Spider. Just really, really macho stuff here. Going toe-to-toe with a monstrosity. So they're just huge. It's a Thunder support, but just look at this. It's absolutely ridiculous. And they're actually winning. The Spider's taking a lot of damage from the Blackguard and their monster's AP values, and of course the Slayers will never break, so it's definitely not having a good time. In the meantime, I have finally, with that mop-up of the cavalry contingent, and with the fact that really there's only this small pocket left, my cavalry is now much more free to maneuver. They're able to start providing support. You can see the Grail Knights, of course, never tiring, always fresh. Always fresh. It's like some produce advertisement. But Grail Knights are always fresh, and they are going to be able to get a nice little wrap here on the Ragnarok. While over here on this flank, we are slowly but surely annihilating these pockets of greenskins. Of course, the cavalry flexibility, huge boon here, as is the fact that our cannon is once again back online, able to shell away, and our opponent's definitely getting a little overextended, just not able to get into position. You can see here the Force Goblin Spider Riders getting crashed into by some angry companions, getting forced off, and the other thing is that Force Goblin Spider Riders, they've only got 78 speed, so if they're not normally, here it's being buffed by WoP, but normally they've only got about 78 speed, so if they're not being, not poisoning their target, they're actually catchable by units like Rail Knights. So you can see here they do route, and at this point our opponent is definitely starting to fall apart. You can see very little left here of the Wa here. Wartsack getting hounded by Marathi, who's just absolutely brutal. The Knights over here overrunning the backline. Grimgor isolated and trapped, surrounded by Slayers, surrounded by angry peasants, and God knows what else. In the meantime, Faye Enchantress off doing her own thing. I don't even know where I put her, to be quite frank. Did she die? I don't think she died. She's over here. She's helping Marathi out. Rail Knights running amok now. And this really, once the cavalry game opens up, of course, Bretonnia does get absolutely brutal. So at this point, it's just a matter of time before it's game over. So a fun game. And definitely one that in some ways came right down to the wire. Had the Greenskins got a little more value out of their wall, had they been a little quicker to, say, swarm those Blackguard on the flank, things might have definitely gone downhill for us. It was definitely, I think, closer in some ways than it looked. Of course, the Greenskin, I don't think anybody here is going for the super most competitive build, of course. The main intent being to have as much fun as you can in 3v3. It's all a bit ridiculous. So, but going over the builds and how everything performed, you can see the Blackguard, of course, their main contribution, of course, is just holding their own. They just didn't break. That was really, really valuable for the rest of the team here. Just able to hold. In case you guys are wondering, Gale the Snail is BlackIron Battles. Grim is DahvPlays. Their alter egos. But going over real quickly, you can see the Cav, of course, contributing hugely. The two peasant mobs, of course, the MVPs of the game with their 3 kills, without which I don't think we could have really won. They're just that good. But in all seriousness, the Cav did pretty well. Beastslayer's Bastion holding surprisingly well, so getting some good value out of some of these Bretonnian Cav units. BlackIron Battles, huge value gotten out of his Slayers. The cannon, I don't know how much damage it did, but I can guarantee it did a good chunk to those Ragnarok Spiders and enemy lords. It was sniping at them the whole time. Definitely getting some good value. Worth mentioning that Marathi actually got some good value chipping away at enemy lords, which once again, that's one of those things you don't really see, and oftentimes you just see kill counts and it just doesn't look that impressive, but that's one of those things that can make a big difference. Of course, Grumbling Guard and Giant Slayers, she's doing great. For Gojira, you can see Savage Orcs, of course, great. They probably crushed some peasants, I'd assume, but they definitely did. They definitely laid a beat down on some of our troops. For Spagooter, the big problem, I think the big problem was that his troops just got so bunched up on a relatively small pocket of troops, of Dark Elf troops, of the Blackguard, and I think that definitely cost him a bit. But otherwise, these guys definitely did okay. Only other big problem, the Orc Boarboy Begins definitely struggled a little bit. They just got shut down so hard, despite all the support from DahvPlays here with his mob of cavalry. And even with the Ragnarok Spiders, they just couldn't hold up to that much Bretonnian power, backed by the Dwarvish Slayers, which just overwhelmed this sort of light cav chaff mob. And that's just something that's kind of difficult to deal with, that much Bretonnian cav. But regardless, Hensi Spiders did some good work. Definitely the harass from the Forest Goblin Spider was very annoying, very frustrating, and very tough to deal with. But nonetheless, as far as the actual cav fight went, these poor guys just didn't stand a chance. But nonetheless, that was a pretty fun game, and we will be hopping on over to a second one, and hopefully that one will be as fun as the last. So this time around, we are on MP Blue Ridge River, and it was also this time around that our team, the teams did stay the same, but this time around, it was our team's turn to try to go with a little bit of a theme here, while our opposition definitely went with a bit of a haggard mishmash, but definitely. Hopefully this will be another bit of a ridiculous fun game. On our side, we did go with all Dark Elves, so you can see 3 different Dark Elf factions: Vanilla Dark Elves, Cult of Pleasure in my case over here, Atticus was the Dark Elves, and then BlackIron Battles playing as Harganeth. So each of us coming in with a bit of a different themed army, but definitely hopefully something pretty fun. For our opposition, as you can see, a whole mob of different stuff. Some goblin play from some greenskins here with a whole bunch of artillery. You can see Hammer of Gork, 3 Doom Divers, a Goblobber, just so much Orc artillery. And of course, Orc artillery is very cheap actually, so potentially very effective, very dangerous against us. And there's Empire, of course, in there, as well as Tomb King. So just a lot of shooting, a lot of devastation potential, and definitely promising to be a hell on earth for the Dark Elves. Now for ourselves, the main infantry contingent coming in from Atticus as well as BlackIron Battles. We did bring 4 Reaper Bolt Throwers here who are deployed further in the front. And almost immediately, seeing my opponent's build here, our opponent's build here, I was immediately regretting not bringing Blade Wind because the Vortex can be so good against these sorts of blobs. But we did bring our Reaper Bolt Throwers here to provide some anti-artillery support to hopefully shut down Shopti, Giants, that sort of stuff. Going over the builds real quick, we can see BlackIron here on the flank, coming in with a Sorcerers of Fire as well as Crone Hellebron. Crone Hellebron does have Fury of Cain. She does have the Cursed Blade, Blood Frenzy, as well as Gaze of Cain. So definitely some pretty good stuff. She can provide a whole bunch of buffs, yield Murder Party, and she's just a force to be reckoned with. Front line of some veteran up Dread Spears as well as the Hellebroni. You can just look at these guys. They're so fancy. They're so pink too. A bunch of pinko commies. But are their shields different? I don't actually think their shields have different emblems, which is kind of sad, but still they're very cool. They are backed by 2 Organic Executioners as well as the Blades of the Blood Queen and a unit of Witch Elves, so definitely providing some support there. Dark Riders on the flank there. And that is, as far as I think, that is it for him. Here in the center, I did provide a tiny contingent of infantry, 2 Blackheart Corsairs, as well as some Blades of the Blood Queen, who are backing a Supreme Sorcerer of Dark, who does have Soul Stealer, Word of Pain, and Ripal's Black Horror, Chillwind, as well as Power of Darkness and Spiteful Conjuration. A big mistake I did make here was the fact that I did not bring Blade Wind, and it was something I was definitely regretting immediately starting this game out. For the rest of our build, for the rest of my build, I did bring 4 Cold One Knights, 2 on either flank, as well as the Slaanesha's Harvesters over here, and then normal Doomfire Warlocks over here. So some early game spotting, early game zoning tools, and definitely the cavalry contingent here was basically almost all mine. For Atticus, a bit more of an elite mob, some Blackguard of Nagron, definitely never a bad pick when you got Empire and Tomb Kings on the field. Witch Elves, once again, to rampage troops and provide some support. Spears in the front, just to soak up hits, and then Marathi up in the air with the same kit as the last game, so definitely some potent stuff. And I do believe that was, I want to say that was it. Oh, and we do have a Death Hag mounted on her fancy schmancy cauldron. She does have the Chill Blade. She does, of course, have Fury of Cain, so some fancy sort of buffs, and definitely some pretty powerful improvements there. And she does have some magic resist, some missile resist, physical resist, so a lot of sort of survivability options. For our opponents, they did go with that box formation over there. I did actually forget, Atticus did Vanguard a whole bunch of Harpies here to hopefully provide some shutdown, and you can see they're immediately moving, going to be trying to get some damage in on that back line. Carrion on either flank to zone us away from the Tomb Kings, and the Tomb Kings, you can see, providing that peripheral support with the spears. Of course, one of the very strong things about spears is that they are unbreakable. So if we get in here, if we start beating them up, we can't really, they're not just going to rout the fear, terror, anything like that. They are backed by a single unit of Tomb Guard Halberds in the back, as well as the King Takeshi's Scorpion Legion. Some Shopti Rebos here in the middle of the pack. 2 units, so 2 Giants. I do believe Queen Khalida is in here somewhere. She does have, of course, her whole plethora of buffs, though no Venom Staff as far as I can see. Lich Priest of Nakara, who does have Nephara Scrolls of Mighty Incantations, Curse of Zar, Traz Incantation of Righteous Smiting, Ner's Incantation of Protection, and Jaffa's Incantation of Cursed Blades, with, of course, the Restless Dead to provide that AoE, that map-wide heal for his troops. For the Empire, we do have Karl Franz mounted on his Pegasus, completely stripped down, but he does have Hold Your Ground as well as, or Hold the Line, or Stand Your Ground as well as Hold the Line. Light Wizard with most of his spells, or perhaps all of his spells. He does have Exorcism, surprisingly, which perhaps not the best choice against Dark Elves, but nonetheless, definitely some strong casting power there. Front line of mix of crossbows and some handguns. Great swords backing them up. Swordsmen behind that, as well as some spearmen. So a lot of Empire chaff here on the flank. Some halberdiers providing additional armor-piercing anti-large. So definitely some stopping power. Single unit of Sunmaker here in the back, as well as Sterling's Revenge hidden here. So just a lot of stopping power from the Empire, a lot of infantry mobs. And then for the Greenskins, Night Goblins, the Warlords Boys. These are the AP Cloonies, I do believe. Nasty Skulkers, a lot of Nasty Skulkers, a lot of artillery as we discussed before, Night Goblin Archers, Night Goblin War Boss, of course, with the Tormentor Sword, and as well as Wa, Goblin Big Boss, Night Goblin Shaman, another Goblin Big Boss. Of course, this is one of the cool things about custom battles, or perhaps not cool thing if you hate cheese, but you can have more heroes than just 2. You're not limited by quick match restrictions, so these Night Gobbos, the Goblin Big Boss, you can bring more of them. So our opponent here did bring three heroes, but otherwise, not much else to say. You can see the Harpies here are trying to slide out with the Carrion. Honestly, in these sort of flyer battles, none of these units are particularly good at killing each other, but the Carrion, of course, can lock the Harpies down for the Children's Revenge to really maul them, which is a big problem. You can see there's so much shooting here. It's going to be doing so much damage. The Carrion coming in. It's going to be a very tough fight. A nice little nuke there. The Halberd is getting absolutely torn apart by that Wand of Kraydon. Surprising amount of damage, but it looks like she didn't actually get credited with all the kills there, which is a little odd. But regardless, you can see the Harpies do try to dive in, but they immediately get terrified, of course, with the Bone Giant and perhaps Khalida. She actually didn't activate her thing. You can see I've pulled back with my cavalry, not wanting to get pounded by artillery, and now we are pulling back forward. My troops definitely lagging behind a little bit because I was trying to sort of micro the artillery into position where they could get good firing lines or firing angles. But you can see, unfortunately, the artillery already wailing away, doing some monstrous work against the Harganeth Executioners, against the Witch Elves, against all those units. And it's definitely going to be a rough time for BlackIron Battles Force, which is really being the focus of all this hate. Over here, the Bolt Throwers are firing away against this Bone Giant, trying to chip it down. The problem with the Dark Elf Bolt Throwers is they're just not very accurate, or they don't have the very good range. In the meantime, over here, we are slowly but surely sort of worming our way forward, trying to get this Cav, leapfrog it up. But the Harpies, despite their best efforts, get completely routed off, and I think they actually all got slaughtered. So definitely some rough stuff there. Simply too much enemy stopping power. The Hammer of Gork standing tall and tanking those shots from the Bolt Thrower, just not going down. Getting constantly peppered down, but really it's not hitting the gun, so we're not getting that much value there. And in the meantime, you can see the infantry line is definitely closing, but unfortunately, just look at how much damage has been done to the Blades of Blood Queen here. Down under half strength or of an HP and just a little over on models. These Harganeth are in terrible shape, and it's just definitely some brutal stuff. The Sorcerer of Fire here getting completely routed off by fire, and although we are sort of able to get some flanks around pretty safely, the balance of power already shifting in our opponent's favor. Some of the Harpies did rally, and they do come back for a second round, but definitely still some rough stuff. You can see the Supreme Sorcerers here dropping Chill Winds on these Night Goblin Archers, trying to get some damage in there. And we do start casting what is, I do believe, on Dripol's Black Heart, and you can see just eats away these Night Goblin Archers. It's just such a potent spell. It's a really, really strong wind spell. You can see just eats away these Night Goblin Archers, completely annihilates them. But unfortunately, despite all that, there's just so much else to clear up. And the thing with Dripol's Black Heart is that against such a spread out line, it's just not going to do that much. In the meantime, the cavalry contingent pushing in, piling on. Over here, the Dark Riders do pin down Karl Franz. I was definitely a bit slow on the uptake. Big problem on my part. Just not ready to help. And you can see Karl Franz, he gets 16 kills, gets backed by his Children's Revenge, and gets away with basically everything. Over here, the Doomfire Warlocks do dive into the Nasty Skulkers, actually intentionally just trying to rout them off and force them off. Smoke Bomb does go down. There's definitely a little brutal Itchy Nuisance going down, and we do actually get countercharged by a whole bunch of stuff. Not entirely sure what's causing some of that magic damage in there. I do believe the Bone Giant's firing in, so just brutal stuff. These Doomfire Warlocks falling apart very quickly. Cold One Knights do manage to rout off some of these Night Goblin Archers, which is great. But the frontline fight is looking very brutal with the support of Wa now. These guys, these mauled Dark Elves, are just not going to be able to hold. There's too many great swords here, too many swordsmen. It's just going to be a very rough situation. You can see we are pushing through with the Death Hag, but Hellebron basically gone. And we're really just not able to push through. Balance of power shifting decisively against us. The Carrion here swarming Wrath, who's not that good at killing units like this. And I do try to push in with Supreme Sorcerer's Dark to just provide some support, but we're just getting bogged down in these Skeleton Spears who just do not break, just not giving up, just being an absolute menace. We do get a nice little catch here with Karl Franz, who does get surrounded by Cold One Knights. He doesn't have very good melee defense. He's just going to get taken to Pound Town here by these guys. And you can see they've only lost 2 models, and they're just tearing them to shreds. But that's a small consolation prize there, because we're really not getting that much done otherwise. The Cold One Knights trying to shut down Khalida, and they'll definitely do some good damage, but it's just not going to be enough. The Rusty Arrows are still up and around, able to shoot potentially. Over here, the Dark Riders really mauled. Doomfire Warlocks just not in a good spot. They've already used up their heal, and they just can't get more out of it. And this center pocket just still holding. They've still got some artillery ammo, and now they're just pounding away at the Death Hag, melting our force. And really, all we have left at this point is my pocket of infantry, which I was kind of slow to deploy. as the rest of our army is essentially disintegrating. These Blackguards falling apart, Witch Elves taking a while to pick apart the last of the AP loonies. But there's really just too little too late. You can see these great swords here just pushing us back. Spears can try to lock him down and hold him back for a bit, but it's just not enough. And of course, there will be Ushapti summons once we do kill enough Tomb Kings, which is definitely going to be a problem for Artillery Park. Over here, the Cold One Knights as well as Marathi are trying to kill High Queen Kalita, potentially looking for Lord Snipes. We did manage to pick off Karl Franz, who is lying here dead, a corpse on his Pegasus, but really just such a brutal situation to be in. Soulblight here does go down. You can see as well as Net of Mintok locking down these Cold One Knights. Doomfire Warlocks trying to shut down the shooting. They are pretty good against squishy infantry, but it's just too little, too late. There's just not enough of them. They're not able to do enough. Sunmaker's already used up all its ammo. We gotten 50 kills, and it's really just brutal stuff. You can see the Ushapti back there coming in, and you can see even the Black Corsairs are just routing. They're just not able to push through. Only the Blades of the Blood Queen backing up. The Supreme Sorcerer of Dark continue to push forward, but even they are getting slowly but surely just stalled out, and our push, what little was left there, is slowly but surely petering out. And there's just still so much stopping power here in the pocket. You can see the Giants here, Knight Gobbo there hopping around. You can see the War Boss trying to escape the Death Hag, somewhat successfully, as you can see, popping his potion of foolhardy is just to stay unbreakable and escaping. In the meantime here, the Rampage and Cold One Knights, of course, rampage promptly into the King Nikesh Scorpion Legion, which means they're going to get wrecked. We do still have a unit of Cold One Knights here who did force some units off the field, but there's only 8 of them left. It's just, they're not in a good spot there either. And really, there's very little left of our force. You can see over here that Ushapti did take apart that Reaper Bolt through our crew, and they're now going to move on to the second one, which has been doing its best, but it's just too little too late. Blackheart Corsairs do come in, actually get cleaved through by those loonies. Apparently this one guy can send out 3 loonies. Pretty crazy. I do drop Power of Darkness on my own Blackheart Corsairs, trying to get just a little bit of Winds of Magic out of it, but it's just not enough. The Blades of the Blood Queen here getting bogged down on the King Nikesh Scorpion Legion, and it's just going to be too little too late. The Blackguard just whittled down far too much. You can see the AP loonies are surviving. It's just such a force, but at this point it's going to be army losses for the Dark Elves as we do shatter off the field. So a valiant defeat for our team. Definitely some mistakes were made. Obviously, like I said before, these aren't necessarily the most competitive matches, but definitely some mistakes were made. I was definitely a little slow on the uptake with my cavalry force, which I think was my main mistake. I think our coordination wasn't necessarily the best, and we definitely need to be coordinated to bust through that artillery. And definitely the fact that I didn't bring a vortex and that none of us brought a vortex was definitely a bit of a problem. But nonetheless, it was a lot of fun. Going over the builds real quick. You can see Atticus here getting some huge value of the Blackguard. Definitely a valuable unit, but unfortunately those Harpies, there wasn't enough of them, and they just got shot down because there's so much defensive tools. It's one of those rough things in these big multiplayer battles. Really shutting down enemy backlines. Death Hag getting some major value, and Marathi trying to darn this too. For myself, the Blades of the Blood Queen were one of the only units that made it intact or fairly intact to the line. Got huge value. Some of the Cold One Knights did great, and one of them actually did manage to assassinate Karl Franz, which is pretty cool. But otherwise, they did get shut down. The same with the Doomfire Warlocks and the Slunish's Harvesters. They just got shut down hard by so much shooting, and the Reaper Bolt throwers just did not pay for themselves. Just didn't deliver. Supreme Sorcerers of Dark definitely getting some value with Arnsripol's Black Horror, essentially destroying 2 units of Night Goblin archers for 100 gold or so. That's pretty good. Then for BlackIron Battles here, definitely some rough stuff. He got pounded by that enemy artillery, losing the vast majority of his target executioners, and still getting good value out of him. So definitely some solid stuff. Dark Riders getting some good value, but it was just so much pressure from the artillery. As the rest of our opposition, of course, the Greenskin Artillery Mob got huge value. Not really that much value on any of the other units. They just held their ground, but that's all they had to do with that much artillery. The Empire, Sunmaker doing okay. Some of the shooting did okay, especially Sterling's Revenge there. And the Light Wizard got massive kills. I guess there was a banishment I must have missed, which is a pity, but definitely some massive value there. The Great Swords actually got good value, just chopping through that front line. And for the Tomb Kings, Bone Giants got some. Bone Giants and Ushapti Great Bows, of course, just huge. Once again, huge value, and I keep saying that, but they got really some great work done. But regardless, good games. I do hope you guys enjoy this 3v3. If you'd like to see more of either these and 2v2s and that sort of stuff, be sure to let me know. Leave a like, leave a subscribe, leave comments down below. Make me aware. am willing to try out more 2v2, more 3v3 if you guys enjoy that. Usually I stick to 1v1s, but definitely can be fun. It's definitely pretty enjoyable. As I said before, if you if in the odd chance that you do follow me and you don't follow any of the other guys here, BlackIron Battles, Atticus, Gojira, or Dav, I will be leaving links to all of their channels down below. I'll mention who's who or which channel's who, and you guys can hop on in there and make sure to check them out and see what they're up to. I do suppose that is it. I do hope you guys enjoyed, and I appreciate you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.